Hello aspirants, welcome to Insights IAS initiative. We'll begin our second episode with a beautiful and value-dense article from Deccan Herald. This article is relevant to GS paper 3 as well as our essay. So as we proceed into our discussion, we'll see the application of this topic throughout the video. This topic is titled A Meta Model for Happiness Economy. So it is a topic about realizing a happiness economy. So as we know, traditionally we measure the economic growth by GDP percentage. So if we see hike in GDP, we tell that the nation is growing, whereas if the GDP is stagnated, we'll tell the progress of the nation is stalled. However, this is usually considered to be a traditional meaning of economic growth, while the new concept or the meta-economics as such is focusing on happiness as the major ingredient of economic growth. So as we already know, Bhutan as a country, our own neighbor, is well known for integrating the idea of happiness into their developmental story. So we'll just look into some kind of meaning of what is the meaning of happiness economy and a meta-economics model which will lead us to a happiness economy, right? So the traditional economic pursuit usually speaks about profit, and it is usually talking about profit and material wealth, correct? This is the traditional idea of economics. However, an alternative economic philosophy has emerged of late called meta-economics. So this alternative idea is nothing but meta-economics. Remember this term, it's very good usage in our paper 3. Okay, this philosophy, it redefines economic success by placing well-being of individuals and society at its core. So just like how we are seeing that in traditional economics, profit and material wealth is important, in meta-economics, it is the happiness, or we can tell well-being of individual and society as a whole, which is considered the crux of economic growth. So the author here is offering a vision to the world where economic growth and, let's say, human flourishing go hand in hand. So the article also discusses about pursuit of happiness. It is, as we know, a central human philosophy. From world over, we have seen that even in historical site, happiness is ultimately considered to be the final goal of an individual. Okay, so while economic prosperity has long been seen as main ingredient to happiness, it means that if we have seen, if one becomes richer, it means that the person is happier. So richness and happiness go hand in hand is a traditional perspective. However, many researchers have shown that being rich doesn't need to be making a person happier. Or in other words, or to put it in a technical format, researchers have shown that there's a broader set of factors that help people attain a fulfilling life. So that need not always be money. So this discussion is going to surround itself around the concept of richness and happiness and the link between the two. Right, so we'll just go and compare between the traditional economy and meta-economics in little more detail, so that even you can make a table format to distinguish a few small points that separate each other. Okay, as we see, traditional economy focuses on maximization of wealth and consumption. Maximization of wealth and consumption, it means the richer we are, more luxury consumption we make, it means economic goals have been met. It also believes in the ideas that human beings are rational actors. Rational actors in the sense they can make their own decisions, and most of the time their decisions are based on maximization of self-interest. Maximization of self-interest, that is, their interest, their whole economic pursuits will be focused on how to grow themselves. And the third crucial aspect about traditional economic is that it believes in economic prosperity as the foundation for good life. Foundation for good life. Whereas meta-economics, on the contrasting side, recognizes that the human behavior, it's influenced by multiple factors and not just money. It is influenced by multiple factors, which include social factors, what the society perceives. It includes the cultural aspects of one's life. It includes the psychological factors of the individual or the society. It also has a lot to do with spiritual factors. So according to meta-economics, in addition to money, social, cultural, psychological, and spiritual factors also determine the well-being of an individual and their decision-making. And the second notion about meta-economics is that economic prosperity can't guarantee happiness. Economic prosperity can't guarantee happiness. So I think this work I would like to give to the viewers, as in, would you like to give an example where a particular society is known for its affluent way of life, whereas it doesn't fare so well when the happiness of the people is measured? Do let us know in the comment box whether some example strikes to your mind when we talk about economic prosperity can't guarantee happiness. Okay, let us go to the next aspect that was being discussed in the article. It talks about a concept which was asked in 2019 UPSC prelims question, that is social capital. Right? Social capital, as we have seen here, it is an idea which refers to value of social networks and trust within a community. So it is an idea that is emphasized by happiness economy. Those who believe that economy should be led by the happiness of the people, they believe in a rich social capital. So we'll see the components of social harmony. These are very much relevant, and remember the structure to be useful in our essay aspects when we talk about what is the importance of health and education, or having a cohesive social group for the well-being of society. Right? Remember the essay application of social capital. So the first important feature of social capital is strong social relationships, that is less quarrels between the people, tolerance among the community, more ideas related to integrated living, inclusive living, mutual respect, and livability. So that comes under strong social relationship. These kind of bonds lead to lower stress among the people who have a option to fall back upon in case of emergencies. This good mental health results in better physical health as well, taking part or further fueling into greater cooperation and trust in the society. And this whole concept is relying on meaningful work, the concept which we'll discuss in the next slide. Correct? So this can be brought by none of this. If you see, all these components of social capital, can we buy it using money? Answer is a big no. Correct? Meta-economics, it also emphasizes on this aspect, that is meaningful work. So let's quickly look into the concept of meaningful work. Okay, it is basically talking about inspiring from within. Okay, this aspect also is relevant in our paper 4, as in the purpose of work in one's life or purpose of profession should not be driven from outside factors but by one's passion. Right? So this is the basic crux of inspiration from within in pursuing economic activities. So if you see, it is talking about work-life balance. So it is acting as a motivation. So individual should be able to enjoy the work even without any perks like awards, any kind of promotions. Yes, these are definitely needed to keep a person moving, but under intrinsic motivation, we talk about how important it is for a person to be self-driven rather than depending on promotions and awards and recognition for one's personal growth. At the same time, the individuals in a happiness economy usually have a sense of purpose, that is, a goal that determines the meaning of one's life. Meaning of one's life, or purpose of one being alive. So if we see, this is going to be the crux of meta-economics. So what was the basic difference? The normal economic focused only on GDP growth rate, whereas meta-economics is a new concept that focuses on human and social well-being. If this aspect is going really great, economic growth is indispensable, or we can say if we achieve the human and social growth, economic development by default is a subproduct. So when we are spoken about everything good about meta-economics, let us also focus on certain criticals. Okay, this meta-economics, or let's say happiness economy, is having three important critics which also needs to be kept in your mind. Okay, we can title it to be negatives of meta-economics. So if you see, this topic or this concept is overly subjective by the meaning. Happiness, or the idea of happiness economy, differs from one individual to another. One individual to another. Correct? So when happiness means different things to different people, how can we make sure that everybody is happy, right? For example, let's say constructing a hydroelectric power plant would make a particular city happy because it gets clean drinking water through the project, whereas the tribal people there would feel the pinch of it because this makes them leave their land permanently. So when a situation like this arises, how do we ensure that we are in a happiness economy when happiness means different to different people? At UPSC, I had asked this in 2015 mains question, right? We'll go to the second criticism, which is it is difficult to measure. That is, how will you tell how happy you are, or how happy or how sad a person is, right? So what exactly measures, or what exactly is the parameters using which we'll measure the happiness of an economy? It is too abstract a concept. So this is definitely a negative connotation of happiness economy. Third one, or we can also put the second point as, when we can't measure something, how do we monitor it, or how do we work for its betterment? Only when we can measure happiness, we can talk about improving happiness or decreasing sadness. When there's difficulty to measure, so definitely it's not going to be so easy to implement. And the third one, at times, the concept of meta-economics and happiness economy, they overlook the impact of material factors. That is, if you see material factors, that is those things that can be brought by money. Let's say the basic goods for survival. Basic goods like, as we say, roti, kapda, makan, or food, clothing and shelter. If we have good amount of money to purchase this, definitely this will be the source of happiness. And at times, even we can say purchasing important stuff that satisfies an individual will be a source of happiness to some sections of the society. As we have already discussed, happiness is subjective. Correct? So despite these criticisms, we can tell that the concept of happiness economy is giving us a fresh perspective into the routine way of measuring the economic growth of a nation. So do remember this concept to apply in sustainable development. GS paper 3, we have the topic of conservation. We also have the topic of ethics, where happiness, which is the crux of a whole human life, is also a responsibility of the government when it talks about growth credentials. Correct? So with this discussion, let us just quickly visit United States and come back through a editorial of Deccan Herald, again related to the elections of United States. So this article, you can see, is titled "Why Gender Should Be an Election Issue Not Just in US but in India Too." right? So first we'll briefly look into what was the crux of this article in the beginning and how the author could connect this story of US with what is happening in India. So elections are in the US. We are first talking about the elections in US. They're mainly concerned, or they're centered around 5 major viewpoints, correct? One is economy. So which leader is better able to steer the economy towards growth? That is the first point of, we can say, the debate. The second one is related to immigration, or many number of people outside US settling in US either for jobs or education. The third important concept is related to abortion. The fourth one with respect to race, and the fifth one with respect to gender. So out of these three, the whole country is united, or we can tell both the political dispensations are quite strongly advocating ideas of economy, immigration, and abortion. Whereas the main crux that differentiates the fight between Ms. Kamala Harris and Mr. Donald Trump is the aspect of race and gender. So this time, this idea is closely tied to the persona of Kamala Harris. If you see, that is, Kamala Harris is a person of Asian American origin and belongs to the female gender. So both identities is what dividing the two political parties. So this idea is actually talking about US voters associating themselves. Usually in US, people vote for the concept of masculinity. Okay, remember the term masculinity. It would be relevant in GS paper 1, Indian society topic as well, under the category patriarchy. Okay, patriarchy. So what defines masculinity, or what are the features? According to this article, masculinity is defined by aggressiveness of a person, taking charge or taking control over things, and the main important feature, reluctant to compromise, right? So these are the three main features of masculinity. So US voter looks for these three features in a particular candidate to poll their votes. However, a few surveys conducted in US are showing that this time in the election, gender identity, the last aspect of the 5 causes here, is drawing strong interest among Asian American voters especially. That is, Kamala Harris being a female is what is drawing many people to vote for her, irrespective of her racial identity or any other opinions on the US economy, right? So this is a small analysis put up related to the US in the picture. So now the author just takes us towards what is the role of gender in Indian elections. So this is quite frequently discussed topic. We'll quickly go through the pointers here. So take down notes very selectively in this case. So Government of India, or we can better put it as Indian Constitution, has given universal adult franchise to men and women, but number of women contesting in elections and winning in election is still very much less. So this is one of the statistics given, and the oft repeated statistics of women forming 15% of Lok Sabha and 14% of Rajya Sabha. It is very less compared to many developed countries. And the third factor is quite relevant here. Okay, gender in India is still not a significant election issue. So if you have heard, in India, elections are usually run on the grounds of caste identities, minority identities. Then we also have about subsidies and guarantees. But it's not actually talking about gender as a decision maker for voting or not voting for an individual. And the fourth parameter that the author discusses here is about masculinity again. Masculinity prevails in Indian elections as well. Like how it is available in US elections. And in India, those women who participate in politics, they're often given tickets to contest elections due to familial ties that they have. Familial ties, or let's say they were part of dynasty politics where fathers or grandfathers or mother wasn't politicians, and hence they got an easy route into politics. However, but it is not based on individual merit. There are very few examples of women politicians making up to the top with individual merit alone without familial ties. And at times, we have a category of sympathy as well here, where, let's say, in case of an untimely demise of a male politician, we can see that women are fielded in the candidature so that they gain the sympathy votes of the public. Correct? So this is a brief analysis of how India gender is taking roots, or we can tell gender is not or is impacting the Indian elections. So the author also tells that we need to make gender actually needs to be made an important election issue. We can take this down as suggestions or continuation of the previous analysis. Okay, gender needs to be made as an election issue, right? Rather than this topic is also relevant at a time when India has given reservation to women in Lok Sabha and state legislative assembly up to 33%. So many of the, we can say, experts have been criticizing the idea of giving reservation and are fearing the ideas of Pradhan Pati culture, or husbands acting as proxies of women. So even in that criticisms, we can add to the idea that gender needs to be made a part of an election issue rather than giving reservation. So why this would make an impact if gender is given electoral issue is that it instills a sense of pride in the women, and as they're fighting as equals with the men, and winning on merit matters a lot rather than having any political backstrings. Correct? Or we can tell rather on the basis of reservation. So the second aspect they discussed was as more women are excelling in higher education, we can see many women are going to great heights in higher education and outperforming men in various professions. It is time for women also to enter the political arena. In many Gram Panchayat cases, leadership training programs to enable women to become effective leaders. So this is something which was, I felt, very relevant when it talks about women entering politics. We'll just see a few examples in the next part where it is shown that if women takes the crux of leadership, we can see that many issues faced by women are dealt with very seriously by the administration, and there is a lot of change at the ground level. We'll come to that example in the next bit, right? So we'll end the discussion on this gender article with a very important quote from Jacinda Ardern, right? So Jacinda Ardern was former leader of New Zealand. She was one of the youngest leaders of her time. So she happens to tell that one of the criticisms I have faced is that I am not aggressive enough or assertive enough because I am empathetic. It means I am weak. I totally rebel against that. I refuse to believe that you cannot be both compassionate and strong. So this quote is very much apt in our paper 4 for topics like stereotype. We believe that women are in this manner. Women are always emotional. Women are the ones who are, always filled with empathy. They are very mild and very weak in making strong decisions. Whereas Jacinda Ardern counters and tells that yes, we are emotional, women are empathetic, women are not weak. Emotional and being empathetic does give birth to strong leaders who have better decision making skills than any individual who lacks emotional and empathy. So definitely we can counter the stereotypes of this way to make sure more and more women leaders come up. So as we have seen, UPSC has always focused on gender equality. So persistently from quite some time, gender as a topic either is asked in essay, or we see its relevance in paper 1, we see its relevance in paper 2 for governance aspect, in paper 3 as well. We see how women in STEM fare well or bad, and paper 4 with respect to various biases which makes the society unequal, we see the gender component. So the suggestion for all of the viewers is to take as many examples from the gender identities as possible so that your answers are quite unique. You can also try answering daily questions from Secure Initiative, where you'll see many questions from various dimensions. So the more you introduce yourself to unique questions, your newspaper reading will be more broadened, because you'll know which perspectives to use in which kind of questions. So try to follow this suggestion. Right, as I told, we'll go to a similar example related to gender, but it's more of a governance topic. Fine, it is about a case study of Nainital. Okay, we shall discuss this case study with respect to Uttarakhand state. It is about a city called Haldwani. You can either note it down as Haldwani case study or Nainital case study, where the district administration wanted to make the city safer for women and girls. And this especially was an initiative taken after the Kolkata incident. Correct? The administration woke up and wanted to make sure their city is safe and any instances of brutal crime against women is not happening. So it is an apt example for people-centric approach in urban governance. So let's say we get a question on implementation of effectiveness of Nirbhaya Fund. So as we know, Nirbhaya Fund was introduced in the aftermath of Delhi case, and there were many criticism as in the fund has not been utilized much. So if we get any case study with respect to governance or safety of women, this example is a very good approach, right? So we can give the case study of Haldwani city as a role model city. So if we go to the case study as such, this case study, you can quickly note it down, the key points of it. It is based on a discussion with 5,000 schoolgirls. 5,000 schoolgirls. They were identified, and these schoolgirls have told that there are around 480 vulnerable locations in the city. These vulnerable locations include, auto stands, let's say, where people usually will not be there in the lone A times, and abandoned or empty plots, areas that are not well lit by street lights, or darker areas of the city. So these were some hotspots identified by taking the interview of 5,000 schoolgirls, and these areas are now categorized by vulnerable location by the administration. So once it is done, the administration is deciding on periodic police patrolling of the region, of the region, so that citizenry and the public is on alert. And as a result, or how this whole story started was, the district administrator, who is her woman herself, had made a team of 5 lady police officer or female police officers here, who conducted gender sensitization workshops, through which they collected all this data. So after doing a complete analysis of the work spots and the threats that exist to women who are going out, certain strict rules have been made in the district currently. So these rules include auto rickshaw drivers now should compulsorily wear uniforms, that is the khadi uniforms that they have. They all will be issued ID cards in a month or so. All the people who have left their plot empty, they are compulsory to put fences to their plot or surroundings, and in collaboration with the municipal administration, all the entire city is lighted up now. There is no street without any street light, and this initiative has made a long way. It's just in the initial phases, but the whole concept of being proactive before an incident takes place is worth appreciating. Hence, the article in Indian Express used the term, this initiative is not just reactive, but it is also preventive in nature. Right? It's also preventive in nature. So this case study we can say is also applicable in GS paper 1 on the topic of, it's also relevant under the topic social empowerment. Social empowerment by highlighting the importance of community participation. Community participation. Okay, these initiatives, they kind of instill ownership and responsibility among young women. It promotes safety through these initiatives. The same example can be useful in GS paper 4 as well, in the topics like responsive, empathetic and inclusive administration. Responsive and empathetic administration, correct? And also, when we talk about the second part of GS4 paper, which are case studies, let's say they put you in a case where you are the collector of a particular district which is facing frequent harassment of women, and you want to make sure that this problem is done with. So you can use the case study that was worked in Nainital, right? So this is again an example of how when women are at the leadership positions, society will be a better place for other women as well. Fine, we'll go to the next topic for the day, which is again a case study, not from India, but from the far off land of New Zealand. Okay, if you see this, these are adventurous sports, paragliding, we can say it is basically, taking a boat in rough waters. It has a particular name to it. You can recall and use it. So these are some popular tourist activities in New Zealand's Queensland. Okay, Queensland is it's usually, given the title of adventure capital of the world. And if you see here, tourism acts as the main source of remuneration for the local population. So this fuel guzzling town of Queensland and all these activities, paragliding, kayaking, rafting that we can talk about, they all are fuel efficient. So New Zealand has a bold goal. Okay, this Queensland is a city that's having a goal that it wants to become the first tourist destination on earth to have completely carbon zero visitor economy by 2030. That is, though they are a tourist place, they'll make sure that even when tourists are visiting their city, by 2030, there'll be zero carbon footprint. Correct? So it's a carbon neutral economy. So it's famous as adventure capital of the world, as I told, and it's run majorly on fossil fuels. They have just 6 years now to implement this. So in the beginning, this looks like a very ambitious and an audacious project, and we feel that it may not be working. But the story of Queensland gives a lot of hope to us. Okay, it so happened that in the year 2021, that is post-COVID, there were more than 4 lakh international tourists who visited Queensland, a small city. And also, if we small city part of a district, and the local population is just 50,000 here. And the locals started wondering that, can we really sustain the huge population that is coming in? So why it was negative is, majorly infrastructure was a constraint. Construct how many ever buildings for accommodation, any number of roads, everything went out of shot because it was a huge population that were visiting. So in 2021, the major stakeholders in this whole plan, that is the district administration, the authorities in an important lake here called Wakatipu Lake. Remember this lake for prelims, you can use it in the mapping. Wakatipu Lake administration, the district administration, and the Queensland adventure tourist operators, they all put up a plan that we will be carbon neutral, let's say by 2030. They didn't expect that it's going to draw any kind of attention, but to their surprise, they got support from all the tourist operators of New Zealand's Queensland. So after this, they have planned a good amount of changes, which is a very apt usage for environment sustainability or ecotourism. Can better put it as ecotourism role model case study. So as people fly into Queensland using the aircraft, the first plan is to have e-plane flights, that is aircraft using electricity and not conventional aviation turbine fuel. And the next idea is food waste. Okay, food waste. This is a very beautiful concept that can be applicable in India. Food waste are composted. Correct. So this composed food waste gives birth to rich soil through which we can grow bountiful crops, and this crops can feed to agriculture tourism. So this is a sustainable tourism example we can tell. The third one is most of the buildings or accommodations are now in a plan to construct their building using recyclable materials. So they don't use concrete and other carbon intensive materials. D is wastewater treatment. They're going to put wastewater or channelize them into wetlands of the region which sustain the wild population there. And they also have the concept of solar parks or solar garden, and the power from this will be used to light the roadways, street lights and the other stuff. The last one is jet boats. As we see, kayaking, boating is also quite popular here. Jet boats or hydrogen fuel based boats are the plan that they have started to implement. Right? So this topic is going to be very useful when you talk about tourism in India also is a sunshine sector. Dharmashala Declaration of Himachal Pradesh has had great goals to develop India as an international tourist destination. At the same time, many parts of India's tourist spots are also suffering from environmental degradation. Hence, this Queensland model, where all the stakeholders are happily contributing to an ecotourism project, this model can easily be replicated in India as well. Especially a few months ago, there was a good article in Hindu about how tourism in Jammu and Kashmir which was one of the basic livelihood source for the state, is now turning into a nightmare due to over exploitation of many resources, leading to a lot of problem for the local population. So in a time when tourism has the potential to bring in sustainable development in a region, ecotourism model of Queensland is a kind of win-win case for all the stakeholders: environment, nature and economists. Correct? So remember or note this down as a case study of Queensland in New Zealand. So here we are done with most of the discussions, mainly from the newspapers that are important, that are non-mainstream. For example, this Queensland article is from BBC News. So now we'll go to the last segment where we'll discuss about a popular reel, or let's say popular news that was making rounds on social media platform. Correct? It is about perfect partners. So as you see the news here, 9 therapy dogs spread love and calm at Mumbai airport. So this is a unique program where, the dogs which are trained to therapy, they roam the terminal of Mumbai airport. And what is the purpose? They provide emotional support and companionship to partners. They provide emotional support and companionship to travelers. Correct? So what is the issue that people who travel face is of late? Anxiety. That is, many of the time certain businessmen, they keep traveling from one country to another country. They would face issues of jet lag and the whole process of security check and the long scrutiny of luggage. At the end, this is also sleep deprivation. Or for students who are going for education in the long distance, going away from home or family. So we see a plethora of emotions that roll out in the airports. But this initiative is kind of bringing home a touch of home, bringing to the airport a touch of home, where these canines are cuddleable, they are, pet friendly, and they talk about creating a gateway to goodness. this hashtag gateway to goodness was popularized by Mumbai Airport recently when they introduced the perfect initiative. So how do we use this topic in our article or in our answers? As we know, mental health is a hotly debated topic these days. It is slowly getting rid of the taboo that it was associated with. We need to focus on well-being of people in public spaces. So organizations that are overburdened with work, perfect initiative would help in innovative service delivery. It would help in innovative service delivery as well as a soothing working place. So this is very much relevant. Let's say there is an organization where there is a lot of work pressure. This article is also relevant in the case where work-life balance, when we talk about, or when we talk about issues like stress at work, overworking. Many a times we have seen the example of Ernst & Young, where due to work stress, the person is accused of losing her life as well. In a situation where the workspaces are filled with intense energy and, let's say, work pressure, having these 4 POF friends is something that makes the environment lighter, right? So we also have its application in another aspect of GS4 with respect to the concept of innovation. So innovation is an important quality of a leader, and attentiveness. How the leader pays attention to small details of their subjects is also very much relevant. So they would like, with innovation and attentiveness, leaders usually provide services with a human touch. Correct? So it also speaks about the idea of emotional intelligence of the authorities who address the emotional needs of the people. So at a time when work pressure or atmosphere in the work is quite a debatable topic, making better workspaces, or many of the time there is some idea called as care washing, where some companies pretend to be caring for their employees, but at the end of the day, most of them are overworked. So in such cases, to ease the atmosphere in the workspaces, the perfect initiative or any initiative in similar pattern could go a long way in easing everybody's life. So let us know in the comment section if you also have any such unique ideas to make the workplace very good and effective, right? So I have a small question for you at the end to answer. Try to answer this based on whatever we have discussed in this class. So the question is, discuss the differences between meta-economics and traditional economics. How can meta-economic principle enhance the effectiveness of circular economic practices? Do leave us your answers in the comment section. We will post a model answer for this question so that you can compare your points and also what we can add value into your answer writing, right? I hope you have had a fruitful session and an enlightening session with respect to making different answers. Thank you once again.